Let's talk about what's necessary to bring a lawsuit against someone in an injury case, and there's a lot of proof that needs to come out.
Yeah, I mean, essentially the elements of a personal injury claim are that somebody else did something that the law would classify as negligent, or that they failed to use reasonable care in that situation. It's what attorneys refer to as a liability. Can you prove liability on behalf of somebody else? Did they do something wrong, or did they fail to act when they had a duty to act that resulted in an injury? Then from there, what you have to prove is that their wrongful act or their failure to act caused an injury. And that can get complicated, especially if someone has a pre-existing condition or something that was ongoing prior to this incident. You have to prove that this incident caused a specific injury. Now, if there was a pre-existing condition, you can still recover if you can prove that the incident aggravated a pre-existing condition to result in an injury. But that's essentially it. You have liability, and then you have to prove causation and damages.
Okay. So what kind of proof would that look like, essentially, whenever you're going to your attorney?
Right. So basically what we do in order to get the evidence that we need, we accumulate the evidence on the front end, and say if it's a traffic crash, then what we would do is we'd want pictures of the scene, we want statements from witnesses, we want statements from the parties. If we get into litigation, we take deposition testimony of the parties so we know what people say happened, and then we also have physical evidence between the vehicles and or skid marks or that kind of thing that can help us piece together what may have happened in that wreck. And that's the same for any other type of injury, just getting the evidence that you need in order to prove that somebody else was at fault for the injuries. Then on the injury side, we usually have to rely upon physicians that treat patients or treat our clients to say, yes, we think this injury came from this incident.
All right, 256-536-0077. Let's go to the phone lines now. Hollywood, go ahead with your question for Michael.
Yes, Mike, I was wanting to ask, I got injured on my job, and the safety guy took me to all of my appointments, and don't know when. I'm trying to go get my workman's comp started. They refusing me, but I was injured on the job, and they treated me the whole time with workman's comp.
Well, I mean, essentially in a workers' comp situation, it's different than other type of situations, because you don't have to prove that anybody was at fault. All you have to prove is that you were on the job and that your injury arose out of and in the course of your employment. So if you get hurt on the job, it doesn't matter who is at fault, you can still recover for workers' compensation benefits. And those are a limited benefit. They pay you 2/3 of your wage for the time that you're off work, and then they pay you for your medical treatment, and they pay you for any permanent disability that you have. But if you got questions about that, you need to talk to a lawyer about what the benefits are that are provided. This is, an area that we practice in, and we can let you know what your rights are.
And Michael, speaking of workman's comp, there is a short amount of time that you have to report that.
Yes, absolutely. If your employer has actual notice of the injury, or your supervisor saw it, witnessed it, then they are presumed to have notice. If it was something that your supervisor didn't notice, then you have 3 days to report it to your employer. So that's why you need to make sure that if you get hurt on the job, no matter how slight it is, you say, "Hey, this happened. I don't know if If you don't think it's significant, you can say, look, I don't need medical treatment at this point, but I just want you to document that this happened in case I need it in the future."
Well, thank you so much. And if you didn't get your question answered, remember you can always call our friends over at Timberlake and League. Thank you so much for joining us, Will.
Thanks for having me.